frequently he's me. That's just the way he is. Don't take it personally. And so it's the most interesting thing that I do for my job, and can be the most frustrating. And as I leave, I hope they promote from my deputies, because it is a unique thing to do. It took me, oh God, 10 years to figure out how to do it right. First clamming out at Great Pond, then watching my boss open for 6 years was a great lesson in what to do. And we brought the pond into the modern era. We stopped using a bulldozer, started using an excavator, did it once by hand. I was a lot younger then, and I said, I'm never doing that again. It's a lot of work.
That's a lot of sand to move around.
Yeah. So I'll shut up. That's enough about Great Pond, unless anybody's got questions.
Yeah, that's very interesting. Did Sherry join us?
I see her.
You do? Oh, good. I don't see her.
I did. Sorry, I was late. I was thinking it was 12:30, and I set it up for noon. And I'm the one who set it up for noon. So
I know.
Sorry,
I've seen the time changed a couple different times, so I wasn't sure.
Yeah.
But I did check. It's 12. So
thank you for whomever is working at the commission who opened it for me.
and
it is now being recorded, so you are being recorded.
Okay.
If anyone has a problem with that,
Please do.
I just want to say for everybody, they saw the link to the PRB discussion.
Mhm.
I was there for that, and it's a really good discussion. It's very kind of technical, but the woman really seems to know what she's doing. So
yeah, she went over it very well in detail. Probably some people will be joining us at 12:30, so I'm very sorry that I messed that one up.
that's all right. We still got 8 minutes. So anybody else have anything they want to talk about? Yes, Anna.
Yeah, hi there. Hey, everybody. So I would like to discuss that PRB and hope that we can have a thorough discussion about it. It still is, it was everything that I thought about. It was confirmed. And it is a fact that they add in modern farming, unlike where she grew up on a farm and they didn't use nitrogen fertilizer, because yes, indeed, soybeans do capture nitrogen from the atmosphere. She's absolutely right about that, but not with modern farming. I have confirmed this in numerous ways. They add about 100 pounds of nitrogen per acre in order to get the modern kind of yield that leads to the modern kind of crop yield. And it is indeed 52 acres are required in order to grow the amount of soybean oil that is used in this one system. And it is it is roughly 3,431 gallons was used, and Emma agrees with this. And I have written all this information down, and I sent it to Sherry, or asking it to be sent to everybody. So here, let me go through it in the detail.
And it was
3,431 gallons are needed for this one system. And the oil man himself, I called him up because it was right on my, I have it on my phone. I took a photograph of the containers, and he said that it is likely to last 3 to 5 years, he said. That's just from him. And then, so you can get 66 gallons of soybean oil from 1 acre of land. So you divide the 3,000 plus gallons divided by 66 gallons per acre, you get 52 acres required. Then you times 100 pounds, 52 acres, just picture it. It's way, way, way bigger than the biggest field up at up at Seven Gates Farm. It's bigger than, you know, it's 52 acres. It's a huge, huge piece of property, you know. It's as big as all of Mohu. It's as big as, you know, like all of Vineyard Haven or something crazy. You know, visualize it, please, out of prime farmland, okay? So every acre there needs to have 100 pounds of nitrogen fertilizer added to it, just the nitrogen part. That comes to 5,200 pounds of nitrogen for just one system. In this case, it is grown in Maryland with the watershed going right into Chesapeake Bay. And you better believe there's going to be a lot of nitrogen loss. That's what happens in modern agriculture. They put in way more nitrogen than is actually needed because they want to make sure the plants have enough. And then you have a big rain and half of it or more can be washed right into the groundwater and then straight into Chesapeake Bay. So how do we feel about having one system that has all that incredible negative impact just because it happens to be somewhere else? Of course, the CO2 would be phenomenal because of all the farm equipment that they use, all the churning of the soil, all the everything that they do. I'm not even mentioning the carbon dioxide pollution that would come from that, all the fossil fuels burnt and all that stuff. So I want everybody to really think about this. I'm sure you are. I'm glad I'm having the chance to talk about it and not have the feeling that I will just be interrupted. So I'm able to take my time, and I look forward to the discussion that I would like to have right now. Yeah, I can just say also my goal with this is to make sure there will not be another system like this on the vineyard. And I want our committee, which I and a few others started like 13 or 14 years ago. I want our committee, which is a purpose of protect our water. That's what we called ourselves, the POW, the POW, protect our water, for Christ's sake. And not just here, but wherever else. It doesn't matter how effective this system is. We can do this with wood chips, as you all know by now. For God's sakes, let not destroy Chesapeake Bay just because of an experiment that happens to also be able to reduce nitrogen.
Okay, I appreciate what you did. I appreciate the work you put into that, and it made it very clear. Sherry, I know that you were aware of this discussion from last time. I think we talked about it. I'm just curious, have you run it by anybody and gotten a reaction from anybody?
I sent all the information to Jessica and she spoke about it. I've talked to a lot of farmers. They're, nitrogen is very expensive, so they try not to waste it. There is a study, sorry, I'm letting people in too. There is a study going on, and part of our study will show how long that the oil will last, and it could be 3 to 5 years. It could be longer, but there's a study on the Cape that's actually looking into that. It's having good results, but the area that we put it in, and the areas that it would be most useful, wood chips would not be useful there, or could not be used, because we would have to do too much digging, and it's hard to dig in any soils that are filled with water.
I'm sorry.
So we will consider it, though. We'll take your considerations, but it is working. So
I have
at this point.
Yeah, I want to talk again because I have to address this thing.
Okay, and Rachel has joined us, so we can talk about this for a couple more minutes, but Rachel,
This
we'd like to give her a presentation too.
This is the most important issue that is facing us right now. So we've got to give it the time that it deserves. So anyway, you said, I am absolutely not suggesting a berm filled with wood chips. That is an absolutely insane idea. Insane idea. I am talking about a simple box, very similar to the stuff that they're putting in Vineyard Haven now. Very, much simpler. It can be much cheaper. A simple box that comes between the septic tank and the leaching field. That reduces 95% or more of the nitrogen. And it costs probably about $8,000. This is the reality we're talking about. And I just want to make sure that nobody thinks I'm thinking about a berm filled with wood chips. That's another insane idea that must be eliminated out of people's minds.
Okay, so you're talking about individual septic systems dealing with this all themselves, because the whole idea of this is to capture more, a flow from a certain area. So
get it. Individual systems, please.
Okay. We got it. All right. Well, I think this conversation will continue, and I'm just curious if there would be anything else besides wood chips that might work.
Why are you even questioning? Wood chips is the silver bullet. It's ubiquitous. It's everywhere. They're always.
We have lots of wood chips. That's for sure.
We do. It's a local product. It will last. Please.
Okay. All right. We're gonna move on. Unless anybody else has a question or wants to comment on this, it certainly is. Nothing's perfect, and everything comes with the strings attached, and we'll have to follow up. But if we don't try something, we'll never know whether something might work. Right. So this is an experiment.
And we are looking at the wood chips. We're looking at the systems, but DEP is really strict about what they put in the ground. I'm sorry, Paul. I'm sorry it was my fault that I started the meeting in late. Would you mind giving just a brief update of what you talked about before I signed in and it was recorded, so that I'm sorry to make you repeat yourself, but would you mind doing that? And then we'll have Rachel give her the presentation on the update for the 208. Please. Is that okay, Richard?
Yes.
I'll summarize. I won't ramble. Or if I do, stop me. First thing is I'm retiring in January, so I'm not going away, but I won't be the shellfish constable anymore. So that was what I had to report. The other thing that I had was on my way out the door, I got us a C grant, some money to build an upweller. $7,500 to build an upweller to care for Martha's Vineyard Group seed, as well as $5,000 to purchase some oysters from our oyster growers and help maintain our family areas. And other than that, Eggertown Great Pond's still open. It's doing great, and pun intended. Seawater on the outside of Eggertown Great Pond is 32 parts per thousand. At Wilson's Boulevard yesterday, it was 26 parts per thousand. So it's got a nice salting, been open going on 2 weeks now. And that is about the meat of it. So I'll be quiet now.
When are you retiring?
January 18th is my last day.
Okay. We'll have to have a Zoom. We'll have to have a Zoom party at our next Water Alliance for you.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, and Sherry, to make you feel better about Zoom meeting, I just finished a general membership meeting with the Mass Shellfish officers, but 2 weeks ago, to set this meeting up, we were having a board meeting, and the recording secretary had to call me because I had eaten a big lunch and I was napping in the sun. And I was 5 minutes late for the meeting. So she's like, Paul, where are you? And I could be honest with her. I had a big lunch, Amy. I'm napping in the sun. And so, it happens. And the good thing about Zoom is we get a slice of everybody's life at home. So with that, I'll be quiet.
Thank you, Paul. Thanks for repeating yourself. Rachel, are you with us? I know she was.
I am, and I will unmute.
Great. I am going to make you a co-host so you can share your screen.
Great.
Oops. Hang on, I was making Paul a co-host. Yeah, beginner luck here. Rachel and I gave a presentation to Chilmark Conservation Commission. And this is just to give an overview and an update of the 208. So I figured it would be a great thing just to give the pretty much the same presentation, just to so everyone knows what we're doing, because each town is similar. Okay, let me see.
208.
Now Rachel's going to be a co-host.
Okay, I was gonna say, here we go. And I will explain what a 208 is. Can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, great. So this presentation, we've given parts of it before. I'm going to move through it pretty quickly, but if you have any questions, certainly reach out to me or reach out to Sherry. I'm happy to follow up with you on it. So with the Water Resources Department through MVC, I will also send out the presentation afterwards so that you have it to refer back to. We have started a process of writing a 208 equivalency report, which is basically a watershed management plan. And so the intent of the report is to assess the state of the ponds and come up with solutions to remediate some of the eutrophication that's happening and also just improve the habitat. So with that, I will move forward and talk a little bit about what do water resource planners do. And what does the MVC do, of course, is work on development and planning. So
it's not quite in focus. It's
yep,
just,
hold on.
My screen, somebody else's.
Give me a minute here. Oops, let me go back. Sorry. This is supposed to be a video,
Huh.
which is not playing. I'm sorry to say. Well, when you see the, sorry about that. I don't know why that did that. But when you see the presentation come through, this will be a video that you will be able to play, and it will show development through time. So it runs from 1660 up into 2086, and it shows the number of buildings that have been built or will be built. And the purpose of this slide is to really show you what we're planning for and why we need to plan ahead, because we are developing, we'll continue to develop. So the water resources and watershed management effort really is focused on developing resources that inform the decision-making process for towns. So in this photo, you see the watersheds as they are defined according to the MVC. And in each of the watersheds, a watershed is basically a boundary where all of the water flows toward one single body of water. So the bodies of water that you see here are, of course, Squibnocket, Menemsha. So this, I don't know if you can see my arrow, the black line going around basically is the border where all of the water flows to the center of the pond. So when we say that we're planning for the watershed, we're planning for this whole entire area and the groundwater that will end up in the ponds. So we collect the water quality data according to the federal and state guidelines. So it's certified data. And then we also will support implementation and planning. I'm going to go ahead and admit, Gregory, implementation, planning, and help with finding sources of funding. Many of you are familiar with Sherry's water quality testing protocol. She has physical parameters she tests for. She also is testing in the lab. She tests dissolved oxygen, whether or not it's rained. As far as testing in the lab, she's testing for she can say it better than I can, dissolved oxygen. She's testing for nitrogen, chlorophyll, and a host of other things.
Phosphorus, that's what we take
Phosphorus.
the water samples and test for. Actually on site, we do the field parameters of temperature, salinity, dissolved oxygen, and pH.
Right.
And we record the weather conditions at the time and anything unusual, like if there's a flock of birds there, or if there's a bunch of boats or kayakers are going through. So we record all that too.
And also when you receive the presentation, if you look on the bottom, there'll be notes that can give you some more detail on what Sherry is testing for specifically. So what is a perfect pond? A perfect pond is the ideal. It has eelgrass or the potential for eelgrass, a very biodiverse environment, dissolved oxygen greater than 6. You can read this as well as I can, but that's really what we're shooting for. So when we say that we're trying to manage the watershed, we're trying to create these conditions within the water bodies. And what is a threatened pond? So what we're facing now and what we're finding with Sherry's data is that our ponds are definitely threatened, as you well know. So here we have just an explanation of what eutrophication is. It's a process, but also for the Martha's Vineyard ponds, the easiest or the most manageable piece of eutrophication is nitrogen mitigation. So that's really what we're focusing on. And the next few slides, I'm going to just move through them quickly. You can look at them later on your own, are the state of the pond reports. Sherry has put these together for all of the ponds. I have Up Island's ponds in this presentation, but you can look through and look at the data to see how we've been doing over the past, I think 4 years, 3 or 4 years. So one thing to note with each of these is here, the red lines are the thresholds. So this threshold on the nitrogen, for example, in this chart is what the state has determined as the target nitrogen load. And for this pond chill mark, it is consistently above that level. So that is that's what we're concerned about, and that's what we're planning for. But again, you'll have all of these to peruse later. This is James, Menemsha, Squibnocket, Tisbury Grape. Cyanobacteria is another thing that we're watching. Sherry has been testing for cyanobacteria in all of the Up Island ponds, I believe. Is that correct, Sherry? She has been testing for cyanobacteria. This summer, cyanobacteria, this is a photo of Squibnocket Pond during this past summer. I believe it was in July when they had a cyanobacteria bloom. These other photos on the upper right is what cyanobacteria looks like under the microscope. And then on the bottom right is a closer view. The upper right just shows a lot of cyanobacteria cells. So it is an issue. We are very much aware of it, and it is a part of our planning process.
And I am looking for cyanobacteria in all the ponds that we do water quality. So I've even took cyano samples in Eggertown Great Pond, Senjikataket, Farm Pond, Tajmu Lagoon. So I'm just trying to get a baseline as what's there so that we can see if there's any changes.
Yep. So a little bit more specific information about the 208 equivalency report. The 208 report, there is already a 208 report that was produced, I believe, in 1977. It was something that most regions did. So we're updating that, of course, but we're also using it as a planning tool, as I said. So a big part of this effort since February has been working with groups of residents and business owners, shellfish constables, and the town conservation commissions to really get a sense of what is the state of the ponds and document that. So that has been done in terms of habitats, what's living in each pond, as well as water quality. And one of the pieces of this that we've done recently is to take eDNA samples in each of the ponds so we can get a sense of what lives there. And once we have this information all pulled together, which will be by the end of January, we will have it for all of the ponds. We can go through and identify areas that are problematic. We can look to start to evaluate the sources of nitrogen, and is what we'll be looking at more specifically, and then evaluate potential solutions. And then once we have a list or a matrix of potential solutions, which will be a list of solutions and then which areas they're most appropriate for. So for example, if it's an AI system that's attached to a septic, where would that be the most appropriate solution to denitrify? If it's a farm, it might be a different solution. It might be a PRB. And I see your eyes flicker, but it may be more appropriate. We don't know, but we will find out. But let's not start that conversation right now. Let's finish this. And then we'll work on an implementation plan. So figure out how we can put solutions in place that are most appropriate and most cost effective. And then another piece of this that we're working very hard on is developing an information platform. So we will have a website that has all of the information that we've gathered for the 208 report, which is environmental assessment. It will have information that our working groups are pulling together and reviewing. It will have links to resources that anybody who's interested in can learn more about watershed. They can learn more about planning. They can learn more about what's happening in our ponds specifically, and also how they can help. And as I said, we really are focused on solutions. So we'll identify areas of concern, develop a matrix, and support implementation. And just to note, some of these photos are actually videos that were supposed to be playing, but they didn't. So you'll get to do that when you review. Some of the options that we're considering for our traditional, others are non-traditional. Pond openings, of course, we opened Chilmark Pond and Tisbury Great Pond. Dredging, you can read the list. IA systems, agricultural, we've been talking a lot about agricultural nitrogen associated with agricultural areas, stormwater discharge, and of course, shellfish enhancement as potential options of potential solutions. And that is not an exclusive list. We expect it to grow. And then finally, I want to make a pitch for the Ponds of the Vineyard webpage. This is on the MVC website. The link is here in the bottom left, if you'd like to go there. It has great information about each pond, including the reports that have been written about the ponds. Chris Seidel has put together an excellent pond tour, virtual pond tours using drone footage that was captured by Chris, but also Ollie Becker has put together, and it's a lovely presentation if you want to do a tour of, we have Chilmark, Menemsha, Squibnocket, and Tisbury Great. James Pond will be coming. And as you can also find our data results on that page. If you go to, I think, data collection, if you look at the tabs, there are various areas where you can find data. And then we will be loading up the 208 information as well. And with that, we can open up for any questions.
Fabulous. Beautiful presentation.
Thank you.
I'm going to try to share my screen and show you one of the YouTube videos of Tisbury Great Pond, because
yeah.
Chris has done a really fantastic job. I think they're really cool. So I'm going to see if I can take back the screen and share my screen, but it'll be just a minute. Okay.
I can probably access that quickly, Sherry. Oh, you got it.
Are you all seeing the Tisbury
I
Great
see it.
Pond?
Yep,
Yes.
beautiful.
We are planning to have a voiceover, but right now we're not.
Wow, these are great.
Mm. Mm.
I would say too, the other really valuable piece of this is, as we look at Town Cove, for example, Town Cove is always way above its nitrogen target. So when we look at these, we can look to see what might be contributing to that.
Town Cove has also been closed for bacterial reasons for a very long time. So
Yeah.
it's closed to shellfish harvesting.
Yeah.
Wow. That is so gross.
Yeah, look at that. Wow.
And when you're walking on the beaches, of course, it's way, way worse. Mm. That is so disgusting.
It does say color enhanced.
It has been enhanced.
Yeah,
And,
but
and
you-
I assume that was so that we can see that some of those, the contrast or something. So cool.
Right.
and it's so many places, it's just brown, it's just, look at these edges here. It's just a lot of brown, dead algae.
I'd be curious what season these were in. You can kind of tell by the foliage, but maybe not.
These were taken in June.
Joan.
Okay, so it
Makes
would get
sense.
much, much worse then as the summer goes along, much worse. Because the water warming,
Oh, they named that cove, right?
I have a lot of photographs walking on the beach, sometimes all green with algae, sometimes all brown with algae. And stinking.
Were the water temperatures this summer warmer than they've ever been before or in anybody's memory?
No, last year was much warmer.
Huh. I guess that's right. We didn't get that much hot. That's right. We didn't get that much
Yeah.
hot weather.
And we
Few
didn't,
days.
I think we had more wind, that the mixing really, that
Yeah.
really helps.
We had no shortage
know
of
what-
wind.
We don't want to watch. Okay. Rachel, do you have the one for the, we don't want to watch 2 days on Nantucket. Do you have the one of Chris's or no? The time lapse of
Oh,
the
yes.
construction?
Yep. Let me get that one up.
And I think you're still a co-host, so you can share.
Okay.
Hang on, let me get rid of Nantucket here. It does not want to go away. Sorry.
Let's see.
But the commission has a YouTube channel, so you can go to MV Commission YouTube and you can see all the videos that Chris has done. She did
Cool.
one for Chilmark, and she's done one for Menamsha Squibnocket system. So those are pretty cool, but we won't make you watch all of those. They're a couple minutes, but she did an absolutely fantastic job on those.
Thank God
Oh.
for drones. Drones are revealing the truth, aren't they?
Yeah,
Mm,
okay, here we go. Hold on. Let me get all this other ads off my screen. Pause. Share.
Not to mention what LiDAR is doing.
Can you all see?
Yeah.
Okay, let me push play.
But we're all in, your Zoom is still on top.
Oh.
What?
Is that better?
No, we still see all of us, and then we see the
Oh.
picture underneath. You can
It
just
says I'm
move your
sharing
Zoom
the
window.
screen. Okay. Hold on. I don't know which screen it's sharing. Stop share. Sorry, everybody.
I thought it looked fine.
I thought
Okay.
it looked fine. I thought it looked fine too.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. All right, let's try again.
Yay. Oops.
Sweet.
It's on the side again, but
So on the top is each year. So this is
Wow.
development in each year. By the 1900s, it's pretty rural agri town. The towns are growing. And that's 1900.
Wow.
Okay, so this is the 60s. Now watch.
oof,
Ah,
oof. What's the red?
Red or
Sure.
Protection.
Future, what could be done.
Yep.
No, I would
See
say
up until
slow,
1960, and then between 1960.
slow it way down, I would say.
Yeah.
Slow it down, you know?
So there you
Hey,
have it.
guys.
Any questions?
As we conclude, just before we get to questions, I just want to point out that this is a management plan that's funded by, for the first time in the state under this Cape and Islands Water Trust Fund. The state funded this because the technology that we're using both in the PRB and in some of the other systems that we're testing has really produced results that they're interested in. And we have a lot of credibility with them. Sherry has a lot of credibility in terms of the testing that we've done. Our goal, just so there's no confusion, is to clean up the ponds. Our goal is not to, we've tested, maybe we got to keep continuing to test because we are the tester of record in terms of the MEP. But our goal is to clean these things up. We have the technology, we're developing other technology. We know enough about the ponds. We've tested them for 30 years. It's now time to make the hard decisions, to find the money and to do it. And that's what this is about. This is not about understanding and I get that. We need to analyze it, and we're doing DNA testing and other kinds of stuff to understand it. But the end goal of this thing is to put the mechanisms together and to clean them up.
Absolutely.
And the fact that the state is, because at some point we're going to have to leverage funding for it. And it's really encouraging, it's, dredging. I'm looking at Paul Bagnall. Dredging is opening ponds strategically is one other technique that we need to do, because if you look at the Edgartown Great Pond, obviously the soaring was a big part of it, but also a much more aggressive and opening of the ponds so that the water is constantly coming in and out. So there are other techniques, Phragmites, oysters. There's other techniques that we need to test. But I just want to thank you guys for listening and to know that our goal is not to put a management report together. It's to clean up these ponds. Thank you.
Good. All agree.
Okay, are there any questions?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, Anna.
To put it succinctly, we have to declare our right to protect our ponds our right to protect our drinking water, that is our right as a community. And we have to tell DEP that this is what we're going to do. You can come and test it all you want to. We will do our own testing, but we want to put in the systems that we think are the best to do. And that if we just go ahead and do that and possibly counteract it with a lawsuit if it's needed, because they're forcing us to put all this nitrogen into the groundwater, into the pond. So that's what I would like to focus on in order to follow up what we just heard that we need to do. So thank you for that excellent presentation, Rachel. And I must also say, Sherry, you look particularly wonderful today. You look so beautiful. Those earrings are really doing something. And also I want to say, Sherry, I had no idea that you did all these things. I am completely impressed.
She's got a tough
Thank
job.
you.
She spends it out
Thank
on the
you.
ponds.
You are
I
fabulous.
agree, your earrings are amazing.
Yes,
are
they most certainly are.
They
My
are.
little
Look at
my
those.
little Santa
Oh, yeah,
trolls
nice,
are
nice.
amazing.
Nice, very nice.
What a
They
little
make me
fur-
Very
happy and a lot of
amazing.
other
what a
people
little
happy.
fur will do to a woman. What a little fur will do.
Okay, anybody
Anyhow,
else? Anybody else have
great meeting.
questions?
Great meeting.
Questions, concerns? I'm not seeing anybody. I can't see. Yeah, Paul.
Just
Fresh
really
water.
quickly, thanks for the good comments on Great Pond. It was a very much a community effort to get that pond cleaned up, and let's not be lax. It can go backwards. So we be vigilant. Yes, very kudos to Sherry. I can testify that she has done years worth of testing. Is a very good replacement for Bill Wilcox. Just one point is that we spend a lot of time talking about nitrogens, and that's appropriate in saltwater bodies. But as we move to freshwater ponds, we have to be concerned about phosphate as well. A lot of them, as you move down the salinity range, I see a lot of you nodding your heads, so I'm preaching to the choir. But as you move down the salinity range, phosphorus becomes more of an issue as a limiting nutrient in your water until it finally is a limiting nutrient once you get to freshwater ponds. That's why we have phosphate-free laundry detergents. It wasn't bothering us that much in the East Coast, but boy, was it raising heck in Ohio. So, and then my final take on the whole septic issue is while I got the ear of most of the commission, I think it's appropriate to try and push DEP. We all treat Title V like it's the Bible.
Right.
It is an act of the legislature. It can be changed by the act of the legislature. And I realize in suggesting that, I am suggesting a huge undertaking, because I've shepherded legislation through. It takes years.
Oh, never mind. Never
But
mind.
I don't know how old Title V is, but it's pretty old, and it's time to, in terms of the state, to dust it off and put some of these things in. Instead of proving that wood chips and sawdust works, just make it part of Title V.
Yes.
And then you can test away all you want. And that's my 2 cents on that. So other than that,
V is the
everybody have a
70s.
happy holiday season and Happy New Year.
Paul, maybe I can answer your question, because I'm one of the leading components that we should be able to do better in terms of technology. Title V is a 70s act, amended in the 80s. If you go to all these and test it, you're seeing that the effluent is not 26.6, which is in the act. It's more like 50 and 60.
Right.
And these things are much dirtier and much grayer. But they don't seem to have much, to be honest with you, they don't seem to have much fight in them to amend this. And I'm not even talking about the nitrogen part. I'm just talking about the pathogen part of it to make the effluent anything. So we continue to be diligent. We continue to test. We continue to work with our partners, and I go to all the meetings. That's what sitting here and declaring independence, I mean, it sounds great, but if you're really going to work in this state, you're
No.
going to have to deal with the DEP, and you can, they're maddening, they're frustrating. I get it. I mean, I deal with them all the time. But the fact that we're credible now, the fact that the Cape is using a lot of our technologies and a lot of our stuff, gives us a voice. And Paul, you've always had a great voice because you know so much. You've always educated me. And in your retirement, I want to offer my appreciation. When I came, sitting with you on the dredge stuff and all the other things, you really taught me a lot about the ecology and how everything works. And I'm so appreciative. And we got to keep moving. That was my message to you, is we got to clean it up. There's a lot of excuses. We can sit behind them and they're good excuses, but we have the ability within us to do it.
Yeah.
And, and we have the attention, we have the resources at some point. So I'll turn it over to Emma with her hand up, but I just wanted to thank you, Paul, before I got off. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Paul.
I had 3 things to chime in on. One is Paul's mentioning phosphorus, and we might be the choir, but it's also but it's still good to say out loud, because it's something that we have to remember that when we're speaking to our people who are not part of the choir. So it's a message to not get lost. Paul, I think that we know what we're going to set you to do in your retirement is team up with Anna to attack DEP. Shoot.
Yeah.
Well, I wanted to say that the Chillmark presentation on this that Rachel and Sherry just did was just so good. I sat there, I sat in on it, and I was just so thrilled to see it all presented, because I've seen it. I've seen all of this, but to see it presented was really great. And I wanted to give an extra shout out to. I mean, I think I tell everyone how hard Sherry works and how amazing she is. And I think that Rachel, is an amazing addition to this, and Rachel's really helped bring all this together so that it can be communicated to everybody who's, who doesn't see it all the time. So you guys are just doing really awesome. So thanks.
Thanks,
You're
Emma.
here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, John.
Can I say one last word to
I
Sherry?
can't believe it'd be one last word.
One last word. I just want to say, Sherry, you lucky duck. You get to spend all that time on the water. I am so jealous.
It's balanced out by
Thanks.
time and actual in commission meetings and LUPC.
Right.
Oh,
whatever.
fun.
God, would I love that job.
They're not all beautiful days.
You can
remember that.
volunteer and come with me.
Oh, I would love to do that sometime. I would love it.
Okay, John, go ahead.
Thank you. Well, this is great stuff. It's wonderful to see what years of work and good methodology and new technology can achieve. So I'm very pleased to see the results of all that. And I'm very pleased to hear Paul talk about fresh water and phosphorus, and to not be the lonely voice on that. And so I'm wondering what the plan is, in fact, if any, to extend all of this to freshwater on the island. And related to that, as has been the case in the past, I am curious about what led to the designation of the James Pond watershed. What data were collected, and whether that's available to demonstrate that that includes, for example, Uncle Seth's Pond, and not, as had long been a priori assumed, Old House Pond. So I'm very interested to know that as well. And the other thing is, though, with respect to the longstanding horror show of Title V, I should have been out of this for quite some time, but probably decades ago, working with Anna, talking with Mal Jones and others, probably prior to the existence of the Water Alliance, maybe in the days of the watershed team. It's wonderful that it's no longer a team where you'd say, oh, sorry, we have a shortstop. but to have it open-ended as an alliance is a great thing. But we talked about forming working partnerships with the state legislators representing the Vineyard and so on, and trying to address Title V at the state level. And I just wonder if the case has been made, the right way. It seems to me that requiring Title V of the Cape and the islands, given the geomorphology of the place, of the area, it's like forcing diabetics to drink sugar water. I mean, the data are clear about the adverse outcome of this. And so why could we not make a clear case? Just fly it by them and see. I mean, either they don't respond, and if they do respond, it'll tell us something about how they're reacting to the actual data.
I mean, DEP has known about the nitrogen for a long time. Their own scientists have been telling us this for a long time, and still they're forcing us to drink the sugar water.
Well, DEP is, I mean, it's they've been sued. They're under consent on the Cape to, basically improve themselves. And they basically set up a fund that's generated, I believe, $80 million this year. The problem, I guess, is that they've taken the approach that they're going to try to sewer as much of the Cape as they can.
Yeah.
They did for the first time in the revolving fund, which is how they fund water quality projects in Massachusetts. It's a revolving fund that provides loans and funding to communities to do it. They did put innovative systems are eligible for the first time to get funding for that. The problem that we've been seeing, and the other problem we've been yelling at, is it takes a long time and it costs a lot of money. That you have to, it takes 5 or 6 years at the earliest to get these things, provided for in general use. You got to test all the time. It's just a very cumbersome. It's like they don't. I mean, we've been yelling at them and having this discussion. You don't seem concerned about it. You seem to, as long as you can hide behind the statute, you don't care that it takes 5 or 6 years and these ponds get degraded, over that period of time. And I think we should continue to do that. But they have heard it. Their leadership has looked at it in a different way. There is a Cape and Islands water quality task force, which is under law. They can tax. They have quite a bit of money. I'll be glad to, Richard, you're the chair. I'll be glad to make the dates available. You certainly could zoom in on that. You don't even need to go and make your case. But the Cape has heard this. The islands have heard it, that we don't want to wait 5 or 6 years. We want these things to be, tested now. If they don't work, we'll take them out. But, when you have an option that's been tested 40 times and is doing well, do you need to test it another 30 times? Or do you need to test it for another 3 years? But I can't say that, like I said, Julian Sear has been very, very good to the islands in terms of bringing research money and doing a lot of things and including us. Normally, we're not included in the Cape and Southeast region stuff. And he has given us a voice. They haven't really heard our voice yet, but they haven't heard Churro's voice. They haven't heard Wellfleet's voice. I mean, there's a lot of voices over there that have the same opinion. So, maybe you should invite him Richard to a water quality meeting so that you can impart upon him and have a discussion with him as to the opinions. He's heard them before, but the more people that tell him, it's probably good.
Yeah, I would think so. Anybody else? Greg? I was just coughing. Okay. I don't see anybody else. I have a question which just seems so obvious to me, but I don't know. I want to know the reasons why it doesn't happen. And that seems to be to open up these ponds. Are people opposed to opening up some of these ponds, or is it too expensive? Is it too hard to keep them open? I mean, isn't that the easiest way to do it?
Takes a lot of-
I guess what we've been hearing is that, when you open the ponds, you change the habitat. And for you know, Tisbury, Great Pond, and Chilmark, also, it's not really an option for many of the ponds. So it's an option for Chilmark and Tisbury. But for Squibnocket, if you were to open Squibnocket some way, somehow, you would change the habitat for herring. So you want to be, you know, pretty consistent with which, and that's one of the things we talk a lot about. What are the most important species that we're protecting? And if it's the herring, then a pond opening is not probably the right answer. But we're considering all of the options for every pond.
That first slide that you showed us, Squibnocket, with the new bridge.
Yep.
How hard would it be to just run a channel under that bridge temporarily and see what happens? And you could block off the other end of that pond somehow and do it at the right time of year, you know, not when the least, you know, we'd at least hurt the herring. Just seems like,
yeah, I mean, it's definitely something what we're considering for Squibnocket, because Squibnocket is not heavily developed, and so there aren't, approaching the septic systems there is not, we're not going to get a lot of bang for our buck with that.
Right.
And John, your question about the freshwater ponds, we I believe we started testing in Seth's Pond. It is part of our plan. James Pond is included. It's on our radar, but we're focusing on the Great Ponds for now, but it is on the radar.
Yeah, James Pond is part of the water quality program. Seth's and Ice House this year, we worked with Land Bank and we collected samples there. We looked at it for cyanobacteria and they're looking at it for regular bacteria, but we have not tested for phosphorus in that pond as yet. But it's something we really need to look at again, just to go over all the ponds and just do a survey.
And thanks for that. And the issue, my question about the designation or delineation of a James Pond watershed as including, in this case, Uncle Seth's, and not in the past, as in the past, Old House Pond. How did that come to pass or to be?
Right. I think I'm not. I don't have the picture of the map of the watershed in my head of James Pond. But if Seth's Pond is in that watershed, then it is considered in the management plan because its groundwater will make its way to James Pond. So.
And that's my question, my point. Some years ago, I guess several years after Bill Wilcox and the late Rusty Walton and I organized the first and probably still only survey of all surface freshwater on the island. With the help of the top people from the Cape Cod National Seashore Lab. We, I guess, talked about the possibility of working together on Old House, Seth's, and James, because the a priori assumption at the time, not mine, but operational for the MVC, I guess for Bill, was that groundwater flowed from Old House to Uncle Seth's and then to James. And the issue was to try to actually look into the eco-hydrology of the area. I mean, there's a seep of which I discovered years ago, coming in at what's now the Land Bank property on the sort of west-northwest side of Old House Pond, that is clearly loaded with nutrients. So where is that coming from, and so on. And so I'm just interested now that there is a designation of a James Pond watershed, and that Old House is now excluded. And as an aside, this is partly because I know my understanding from what I was told by MVC commissioners years ago was that when Focus was a DRI for their plans for the expansion of their campus, which was then approved, and they put in a very large Title V system. I think they have capacity of 100 or so. The a priori assumption, as I was told, was that that could not possibly have an effect on Old House Pond. So it wasn't tested for that. And I'm not sure what the basis for that is. And partly, therefore, I'm asking about the basis for, in this case, the exclusion of Old House, which also means that Old House isn't being considered and benefiting from the attention, understandably being, put to a larger the larger brackish water pond of James Pond.
I will, I'm happy to talk with you offline about that.
I have
Becky.
heard reports from people
Well,
saying,
Just as an
Anna,
aside, sort of along these lines, Seth's is definitely in the James Pond watershed. The contours and the way water flows there. Old House, it's up over the hill, so it may or may not, though it's so close. I mean, you can literally walk there through the woods from Seth's. So not having it included doesn't make sense to me. That's all.
So just a quick comment. So that, and I thank you for that clarification, which indicates that the assessment of a watershed is based on topography.
Yeah.
Rather than any knowledge of what happens below the surface. And I think that the confounding issue here is the fact of terminal lateral moraine is hopelessly, not hopelessly, but extremely complicated compared to outwash plain, where you pour a gallon of water in the sand and you know pretty much where it's going to go. And so I wondered if the designation had been made on the basis of anything other than topography. So it would appear to be topography. But if it's going to be made on the basis of topography, then I'm not sure why exclude Old House. So
The watershed map was did include some groundwater, but it was limited in amount. It wasn't just based on topography. There were some other things that were included, but that's one of the things I've been looking at. I'm talking to the USGS about doing a groundwater survey for us. They're thinking of linking it into the sea level rise and how our groundwater might be impacted, but I would like to do a more thorough study of our groundwater movements because that's important for the ponds. So I will definitely be in touch with you, John.
They need to develop a drone that can go underground.
LiDAR is the thing, okay? Laser
LiDAR.
something or other. They're discovering thousands and thousands of ancient temples in Mexico and Guatemala and Honduras that are like 3,000 or more years old, 5,000 or something, with LiDAR from a plane.
Wow.
They're reading the
Crazy.
buildings right through the jungle.
Wow. That's amazing.
Yeah.
All right, anybody else have anything they want to questions about this? If not, we'll move on to anybody that wants to talk about anything that we haven't talked about. Not seeing anybody.
Nope. I would just like to thank Paul for all that he's done for this island.
Yes. Yep.
Our next meeting will be January 20th. We'd love if you continue to come to
Yes,
our meetings,
please,
but
please.
you will have retired by then. So big round of applause for Paul.
Yeah.
Maybe.
I'll probably have time to come to your meetings now that I don't have to. My last mission, now that I've got all the town meeting articles in, is to write the town report and go to the budget hearings first week in January, and then I'm done. So I'll have a lot of time. My other pet organization is the Mass Shellfish Officers, and we have to have a class in March because we haven't had one in 3 years. And with the impacts of COVID, it's getting interesting on how you can have an in-person class for 35 people at Mass Maritime in February. I hope that it's still possible because the thought of going remote with something like that just scares me. And I'm not even in charge of that. I put somebody far smarter than I am to be our educational coordinator. So thank you all for your kudos, and have a good holiday season.
Yep, you too. All right, everybody. Happy
Can I throw out
happy
something else
holidays.
really
Happy
Can I throw something out
holidays.
quickly?
Oh, go ahead. Hold on. Emma, go.
Paul has been the president of the Shellfish Group for, I don't know, a really long time, and he's been a huge leader for us. So we also echo all those, kudos and thanks and gratitude. And Danny Ewert is now our new president of the Shellfish Group.
Oh, nice. Very
Kind of a
good.
big deal because we haven't had a turnover in president in a very long time.
Wow, great.
That's
Great.
awesome. Paul, thank you so much. Man, we've been through many, many years of this together, haven't we?
Absolutely, absolutely. Say hi to Duggar, and I hope you guys are doing well out in Western Mass.
I'm still here.
Oh,
He's-
you're still here? And
Yeah,
he's split?
Well,
Oh,
he's working out there and coming back and forth.
and what do you pass each other and say hi like I do to my wife in the morning?
Yeah, pretty much.
If you're lucky. Well,
No,
say
it's
hi
good.
when you see him.
I'll tell him. Thank you.
All right, everybody, let's go out and enjoy this warm weather.
I
Thank
got
you.
my shorts on.
Aha. I thought about riding with shorts this morning on my bike, but I didn't do it.
Yeah.
All right. Happy holidays, everybody.
Happy holidays.
Take care, you all. Thank you all
Bye.
so much for what you're doing.
Bye-bye.